Okay. All right. Peace and shalom, family. Peace and shalom. What's going on? It's your brother Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. A lot going on my end, taking care of some stuff so that way I won't have any hindrances with the consistency in regards to the channel. So thank you for checking with us on this Saturday evening after the Sabbath. This is our Saturday night live session. Typically, it's our live stream sessions that succeed the Freestyle Friday sessions. And if you don't have the Freestyle Fridays, you try to aim for Saturday. And if all fails, try for Sunday for Sundown Sunday. So just to give a couple of updates on a couple of things. And before I do that, I see a couple of people trickling on in. So I'm going to give you some time to trickle in, give you some time to trickle in. If you're watching this on the replay on Sunday, Most High bless. All praise to the Most High. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate that. All right. So let me give a couple of shout outs and then we're going to get started on some updates and get into chatting with y'all and seeing if there's any trolls hanging out. You know, there's always somebody, especially at this time of night. I'm sure somebody's going to pop on in. And what I'm probably going to start doing as well is simultaneously doing the show also on Clubhouse, because there's tons of trolls on Clubhouse. And some good people too. But if they know that we're live on YouTube on Clubhouse, they're going to flood on in. You know what I'm saying? That the floodgates is going to be extremely open. You know what I mean? So anyway, with that being said, I'm going to give a couple of shout outs. So shout out to Healing Rain in the building. Shalom. HaKodesh Management. Shalom. Solomon Ben David. Shalom. Steve Mikhael Key. Shalom. Bergen Parish. Shalom. Tony Yaya Sharala. Shalom. Yakamani Moshesh. Shalom. Aviyavi. Shalom, sis. AHOS. Kazachia. Shalom. Nilante, shalom. Sister V Love, shalom. Lady Watt, shalom. Remarkable Life Ministries in the building, shalom. You Love Yah, shalom. Get Wise, shalom. R. Dale for Hope, shalom. Dwayne Reese, shalom. Apothecary Custom, shalom. The Most High Child, Shayarala, shalom, my brother. What's going on? Long time no speak. Okay, so I'm gonna give another couple of minutes for y'all trickle on in as y'all coming on in. Give you a couple updates. So there's a couple of personal matters that I've been taking care of over the past couple of months, to try and liquidate some time, which is a precious commodity that I try to preserve and dedicate it to ministry online. I always do ministry offline, even if I'm not seen on the camera. There's always stuff going on behind the scenes with KHM and just our ministry in general, helping out the community, doing things in the community, etc. But then on camera is the other 50%. That I'm trying to accommodate and make sure there's enough time for getting readjusted. As you know, there's a new addition to our family, so getting adjusted with the little one and getting the schedules back on track. It's taken some effort, you know what I'm saying, as well as me working several new contracts, to kind of take care of some things and stack up some more capital to invest back into KHM and matching whatever we pull into KHM. I want my personal funds to be able to match that, so that way we have enough in the pot to do whatever we need to do without anything holding us up. All right. I want to give a shout out to all of our Patreon members. Thank you so much. All of our KHM administrators for all the hard work that you guys do. Thank you so much. All of our donors. We appreciate y'all. All of our Patreon patrons. Salute. Going back and look at the Patreon, I know we haven't had a lot of content. I did put some good stuff on there that I'll get into in a second. But I understand that some people are like, well, I don't see enough content. So, we're going to hold off on Divine for now and pick back up when there's more content. Well, that time is coming very soon. And I totally understand. Again, I'm here to serve in any capacity that I can. The monies that we take in for ministry are used for ministry purposes, right? And I work hard on my own personal time to make an earning to take care of my family. You know what I'm saying? And to me, that's extremely important because not only does it take care of my family, but whatever I have that's additional goes towards helping those in the community, which is my extended family and those, in our community. We say in our community, something like the Israelite community, the Black community, whatever you want to term it, lost sheep community, in our community, right? Because we need it desperately. That's a currency, unfortunately, living on the grid that we need to put into circulation in order to get things to happen, right? And we've done a lot over the past couple of years. We got a lot accomplished, and we have a lot more things that we want to accomplish. More services we want to offer, more media content we want to put out, more marketing campaigns we're going to do, etc. You know what I'm saying? So just a lot, you know, I mean, me personally being off to the side and taking care of what I got to do is what it is. You know what I'm saying? You know, I don't mind apologizing for it, but if I got to take care of personal matters, then, you know, it should be no apologies needed. But out of respect for everybody that supports the ministry, that tunes in, that prays, gives words of encouragement, and do things like that, I do want to sincerely say I apologize for my absence. Just know that it's time that was dedicated to things that are important, crucial, and vital in regards to my personal life outside of ministry. And I want to continue to be here for you guys because there's so much stuff that's been going on over the past couple of months that I have not been able to address, tackle, speak on, etc. So much content, right? That I've been meaning to put out and have not put out. I've been giving previews to y'all. If you staying in touch with my social media and the community tab on YouTube, you see a couple of things that I've been putting out for you guys, and a lot of stuff is in Patreon. So Patreon is that repository that if you're really serious in regards to the studies, because I can come on here and teach you whatever, right? That doesn't mean nothing to me. The most important thing is equipping you with tools, resources, processes, and methodology necessary in order for you to do the studies yourself. So that's what we've done recently, is put out some new content on Patreon to equip you to do just that. So some time ago, I put out the best tools, resources, right, in order to really dig deep into your studies. Well, the Patreon has almost all of them on there, right? This summer, I put a date. I haven't given it out yet because I didn't put the flyer out yet. But our KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study classes will begin this summer. So what I'm doing before I start the classes is slowly releasing all the tools and resources, right? So you can get acclimated with them before we start the class, because you're going to need everything that we put out on Patreon to really be excel in the classes, right? But once you get the methodology and you have access to the resources, any passage in the text you can tackle, right? And then we're also going to do a side class on apologetics for our community. How do you defend our worldview, right? Because when you engage the larger community, there is a mosh pit of all types of religions and cultural identities and all types of stuff. So we don't get lost in the mix. How do we defend when certain inquiries come up against our community, right? And that's why when I explained to you about this right here, answering the beliefs of Hebrew Israelism, right? Y'all ask for it on the Patreon. It's on the Patreon, right? You can go right to the Patreon and you can take a look at this yourself, right? Because each one of these things has a response from our community. And we have to be on one accord and have a common consensus on how we address these things. So there's consistency and cohesiveness amongst us as a ethnic group, cultural group, spiritual group, and dare I say religious group. Okay. So that apologetics element will be tacked on to the classes. So that way you guys are fully equipped. And I've done a couple of sessions. Matter of fact, one of my apologetic sessions that I've done on the YouTube channel, I actually wore this shirt. Interesting enough, this is years ago, right? And I do like this shirt, by the way, so I tend to wear it from time to time. But nonetheless, that's important, right? So I want to make sure that you guys know that the classes are coming up soon. Also, there's been several lectures I've queued up that I'm working on right now. Most of them already done script-wise. I just have to put them to PowerPoint, which normally takes the lengthiest amount of time, is putting everything on PowerPoints. But you know, the several lectures that we have queued up, I was supposed to do one this Shabbat, but I was asked to hold off into July to do a live session because the congregation HGA that we partner with, they assemble once a month now until maybe another couple of months, and they're going to start doing it maybe every other Sabbath until they're able to get back to doing it every Sabbath. But there's already a session that Minister Carnes wants to pick up on. So he says, hey, look, I want to finish out this session. Is that okay? I'm like, cool. He said, all right, so we're going to reserve you for July, and the first Sabbath in July, whatever you want to lecture on, you can. So I said, all right. So I'm going to try to see which courses or lectures that I'm going to do between now and then, and the one I should reserve until then. So what I'm going to do is tell y'all the four, and I've already mentioned three of them before, and one of them I just recently added that I want to actually do lectures on. And one of them I want to do in person. So y'all let me know which one that is. I selected one, but I'm going to leave it up to y'all, right? So first one is, what does it mean to call upon the name of the Lord? That one is really good. Are men now made in the image of God or Adam? That's another good one. No blacksmith was found in all the land of Israel, and its technological importance to us today, right? And the other one is the Nephilim were in the earth in those days and then afterwards, right? So those are the 4 lectures that I've queued up. I have 3 of them fully scripted out. The one that I just added, the no blacksmith, I'm currently scripting that one out. And then I'm going to put everything on PowerPoint. Y'all tell me which one of those 4, right? The first one is, what does it mean to call upon the name of the Lord? Second one is, are men now made in the image of God or Adam? Third one is, no blacksmith was found in the land of Israel and its technological importance today. And the fourth one is, the Nephilim were in the earth in those days and then afterwards, right? Those are the 4 upcoming lectures. So the ones that I don't do in person, I'm going to do on the screen for y'all like this, right? So which one do you guys suggest that I should do in person? You let me know, right? I'm going to go check the chat and see what y'all say. Which one would you like me to do in person? Is that way we can go and we can put the flyers out. We can advertise it like a month or 2 in advance. So if people want to come through, you can, right? Just let me know. Which one do you guys think that I should do? Michael Pratchett says, where do white people come from? I don't even know if that's a serious question. But I'm gonna wait on that. Yeah, so Brianna, you're right. Yes. So HEA has already been meeting once a month, the first Sabbath of every month. This month they were supposed to do the first Sabbath, but they did it the second Sabbath, which is past Sabbath. But they try to do it the first Sabbath of every month, right? So HEA is on and popping still, just not as frequent as it was previously, right? But that's coming back soon. So anyway, let me know which one. Ronell McFadden. So Ronell, you want me to do all of them in person? I mean, I could do that. You know what I'm saying? Just let me know. What do you mean? Why can't anyone answer this question? What do you mean? Why can't anyone? That people have answered that question, Michael. I don't know what you mean. Why can't? I mean, there's a way to teach that. Matter of fact, if you want to know my position, I already did a lecture on it back in 2014, 9 years ago. So what I'm gonna do for you, I'm gonna drop that link in the chat, right? Just so you can get a cursory understanding, and then the in-depth elements of it, I've already shared that on various live streams in the past. I'm trying to think if I actually spoke on it in other lectures going forward. I dealt with one of the ones when I did the one on Esau, right? I touched on it in that one. And I did the Esau one in November of 2014. The other one I did in September of 2014. And then from there, I don't think I did any other ones from there. I think everything else was on a live stream. So I'm going to accommodate you, right? And I'm going to um we'll go ahead and share this with you, okay? Let me grab that. There we go. So I don't know what you mean. Why can't anybody answer that? So, and when did I say Esau was white? When did I say Esau is white? So Michael, I don't know. What do you mean when you say Esau is not white? You know what, Michael? Let's do this. All right. I shared the link. I'm gonna give a couple more shout outs. So how about you join the discussion? Here, let me drop the link in here and we could talk about that. All right. Let me get through everything first and we can go talk about that. Okay. Keith. Yo, Keith, I thought we was cool, bro. What are you talking about? You must be high right now, my brother. Maybe you forgot. I think you smoked too much, and maybe you forgot that the last time we talked, we was cool, bro. And when we signed off, we was Gucci. So what you mean? What are you talking about? Um, watch out. He's sensitive. What are you talking about, bro? My brother, listen. The unfortunate thing is when you came on the show, people didn't even want you on there. I didn't even want to interact with you because of the stuff that you were saying in the chat, but I gave you an opportunity, bro, and we talked. So why are you saying slash stuff in the chat? What's up with that? Matter of fact, you can join in too. Come on, you join in too. All right. Shout out to Slow Flow Benya. Thank you so much, my brother, for that. Elder D. Glenn Royal in the building. Shalom, Elder. That's one of my elders right there in the building. Shalom. It's not a lot of elders I respect, but that's one of them right there. So I'm gonna let y'all know that. So shout out to the elder in the building. Let's see. Let me come on more shout out. Shout out to Mark Benjamin. Shalom. Performance. Acceptable faith. Shalom. Huya. FAFO. Shalom. Slow Flow Benya. Shalom. Black App in the building. Shalom. Rainy Pow. Shalom, sis. What's going on? John and Dorsey, my brother from the other side of the country, other side of the world. Shalom. Jacolius Jen. Shalom, sis. Brianna. Shalom. Warfare. Rebirth of a Nation. Shalom. King. Get Wise. Shalom. All right, let me see what you said. What are your thoughts on us having judges or leaders within our community that others outside our nation can go to on our behalf as Israelites? I wholeheartedly agree. But we would have to have what is termed the Beit Din, right? A house of judgment where we have elected officials within the various bodies within our community to actually be those judges and leaders to deal with matters within our community and to be ambassadors to represent our community. I agree. We should have those. You know what I'm saying? I don't mind being one, but I'd rather somebody else do that because I have other work to do. But if I have to, I'll do it. You know what I'm saying? I've been doing it already. You know what I'm saying? On a small level, on a microscopic level. But yes, I agree. That's Torah, actually. You know what I'm saying? So I agree. Shout out to Jason Harris. Shalom. Talmid Halika. Shalom. Ronell McFadden. Shalom. Sin Kyle TV said Nephilim and Are We Made After Adam? Okay, those are the two you want me to do in person. All right, gotcha. Let me see. Ahos Kazakia says, what does it mean to call upon the name of the Lord? Okay. Let me see. I think that's everybody. Made in the image of Yah. You said that one. Okay. So I got a little consensus going on here. Shout out to sis. You love Yah. I think I gave you a shout out already, but it's all good. Ariel, shalom. Bergen, Paris, shalom. Please don't entertain this guy. It's always the same outcome. I agree, brother. And people, they get in here to try and detour. It's like I haven't been on here in weeks, right? And this is what comes up. Where do white people come from? Why can't nobody answer this? Don't engage him. He's sensitive. He's emotional. I laugh at it, man. It's entertaining, man. It's fun. It's fun entertainment. But I know a lot of y'all say, yo, we didn't come for the shenanigans, bro. We just came for some real knowledge. And I agree. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to defer to y'all. If y'all want me to entertain it, I'll entertain it. If not, we can go on with the show. Right? Hit 1 if you want me to entertain it. Hit 2 if you want me to go on with the show. Just let me know. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Major in the building. Shalom. Peace be still. Shalom. Linda, Rick, shalom. Let me see. DJ, I would love for you to do a lecture that corrects some of the camp's doctrine, like Deuteronomy 28:68, Revelation 2:9. Please show sources and translate what it says means correctly. So DJ, I already did Deuteronomy 28:68. I did a lecture, not a lecture, but I have a video that I did on that when I was actually at HEA. And then I did a lecture at HEA that addressed that. And that was back in 2017. So I addressed Deuteronomy 28:68. In regards to Revelation chapter 2 and 9, I think that's the one with the synagogue of Satan, if I'm not mistaken. I addressed that in the Esau lecture. This is back in 2014. But if you want me to like go over it again, I mean, I have no problem doing that, my brother. I just want to let you know in case you're not aware that I already have that information out there, right? But sure, I don't have a problem. No problem, my brother. All right, let me see what else is going on. Shout out to Mac Fair. Mark Benjamin has a 2. Rufus Kemp has a 2. Jocelyn Harris says 2. Linda Rick says 2. You Love Yah says 2. Talmid Halika says 2. Tim Lindley says 2. Beautifully Created by Yah says 2. And Dorsey says 2. Tony Yaya Sharala says 2. Get Wise says 2. Sister V says 2. Sorry about that, y'all. I was going to give you an opportunity to jump on and bring whatever energy you want to go. But, this is crazy. Can't even ask a simple question without being attacked. What's up with you, brother? I've been nothing but cordial, and I've been nothing but cordial to you. I didn't attack you. I didn't call you out your name. I didn't raise my voice. I wasn't disrespectful. I gave you links to go back and look. There's 2 links in the chat that you can click on and get the answer to the question that you're asking. So, brother, where was you attacked? Doesn't look like I'm the emotional one here. I never attacked you. How did I attack you, my brother? Okay, I'm gonna wait for you to give me the answer to how I attacked you, and I'm gonna go on with the show, because nobody actually wants me to actually have that conversation with you live, because it has a troll vibe. Not saying that you're trolling, my brother, but it has a troll vibe, right? But I guess people are not interested in that. I'm here to serve them. If that's consensus, my brother, I don't know what to say. I have not attacked you. So DJ says, yeah, he did a video on 2868. Oh, that's interesting. DJ, and then DJ responded to DJ. Oh man, y'all are hilarious, man. I love you guys, man. Moray, do you believe the Bible alludes to regeneration, reincarnation, if not fully, to some degree, or not at all? No, I do not subscribe to the doctrine of reincarnation, or if any link to regeneration. So regeneration, reincarnation, people kind of messed up those religious terms. They're not the same. Reincarnate means to come back to the flesh. Regenerate means to start anew. So I subscribe to the biblical doctrine of regeneration. When the Ruach comes upon you, it regenerates, it transforms you. So I believe in regeneration in that sense. But reincarnation, I don't believe that when you die, your nefesh, your soul, is in some waiting place to come back into another body. I don't subscribe to that. I know a lot of my camp brothers do, but I don't subscribe to that. Right now, what I've done is I made a post about this some time ago, and I gave the source of where that doctrine comes from. Right. So if you want, you can go back to my community tabs and scroll back to last year. I think I posted it last year. Where we talk about the gate of souls. Right. That's where the whole reincarnation doctrine comes from. And it found its way into our community. So I did address that. I even gave a source, so you can read the source to see where that doctrine comes from. It is in the community tab, and it's called Gate of Souls. Okay. All right. Let me see. Do you have a list of upcoming events? I would like to add an announcement section for when I start doing videos, and I would love to promote. Oh, I appreciate that, brother. Yes, I do have a list of upcoming events. There's a couple of other announcements that I want to give as well. So just email me, Warfare, and I'll have the admin staff grab your email so I can give you that information. Okay. All right. I know, but they're still not listening. I agree. I mean, look, I don't know what to say. I've done what I can. I've actually in other live streams, I talked about the Deuteronomy 28:681 about Makar and how that should be termed, and how that's in a Hikayel, which is the reflective active voice. And that means literally should be translated as offer yourselves, right? And it's not talking about what we like to term America per se, right? We alluded to America. However, the text is very clear, is that it's the offering of oneself. So one way that I explained it in regards to our condition here in America is, after all the plight that we've been through, we tried to offer ourselves for sale, and no one would buy us, right? Our enemies did it, but when we try to offer ourselves, nobody wants us. That's why in America, the Black community has the highest degree of unemployment. And a lot of us are convicts, not by choice, but a lot of us are convicts. That makes it even worse to get a job when you have a record. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of us are in poverty, right? A lot of us don't have the ability to explicate, our skills and abilities when we get into interviews. A lot of us don't have proper education, right? It's improving, but that's the minority. You know what I'm saying? And because of such, no one wants to buy us. Now, what they'll do is they'll use us, right, to promote, market, and all of that because of our swag, which is just our spirituality that has been tapped into. When we tap into our spirituality, the scripture says that he would make us a nation above all other peoples. And that above means he's going to rise us up to be the standard of righteousness, the example. Well, when we begin to tap into that, our greatness exudes out of every pore and orifice of our body, that we excel. When we're given the equity that other groups had, we are able to excel. Even some of us are not given the equity, and we still excel. I accomplished a lot in my lifetime that I didn't get the equity to actually do. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just the way it is. And it's unfortunate for our community, but that's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? But all of us that have been able to succeed, when you keep Torah, one of the blessings is that's what will happen. Blessed would you be in the city. That's what happens when you put your hand to the plow. Whatever you put your hand to, blessed you would be. But you have to understand Torah in order for you to be equipped so that Yah can then co-sign the things that you do. Man devises in his heart, but Yah orders his steps. What does that mean? When we understand it, then we can walk in his way, his derech, and then we can get to where we need to go. Right? Derech, excuse me. We can get to where we need to go. All right. Shout out to Stephanie Yosef in the building. Shalom. Let me see. All right, so let me get through some of these announcements and kind of catch who's there. Scott Garrett Haley, shalom. Brandon Blackwell, shalom. Where do you reckon first fruits to be? Second day of unleavened bread or when? First fruits is the Sabbath after unleavened bread. So when unleavened bread ends, whatever that Sabbath is first fruits. And then that next day, which is that Sunday, you count your 49 days. Right, you actually count it on that first fruits day, and then add an extra day, which is the 50th day, which is your Shavuot feast or Chag. But yeah, that's first fruits. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. All right, shout out to Deroyahu Bendora. Peace and blessings, my brother. Nice to see you here. Thank you for joining us. All right, let me see. Sonia, right? Shalom. All right, so shout out to Gavin Miller. Shalom, King. What's going on? All right. All right, so let me do this. So what I want to also say is on the Patreon, and thank you so much to our patrons that are still supporting the Patreon, even in my absence. I appreciate y'all. On the Patreon, we've added some new resources. And again, we're going to start the classes in the summer. I'm going to make sure that all the tools and resources are available on the Patreon so you get a heads up. And I did a post outlining what all those tools are. All of them will be available on the Patreon. And again, even if you don't do the classes, just having this information, right, will help you to excel in your studies. And any amount of time you have from 5 minutes to 5 hours, you'll be able to get the most out of your studies because you know how to precisely and surgically parse out the text and understand things as history, culture, the environment, the fauna, the flora, the climate, the locale, right? The recipient audience, the speaker, the disposition of the speaker, the locale and geography of the speaker, right? All of these tools give you access to this. So on the Patreon, you can stream some new resources, right? One of the first resources we have on the Patreon is this right here, a survey of the Old Testament video lectures by Andrew E. Hill and John H. Walton. You can stream this from my video library, right? And this will give you everything you need to know about the quote-unquote Tanakh, Hebrew Bible, and Old Testament. Okay. And as y'all know, John H. Walton is one of my favorite scholars, right? And this textbook, A Survey of the Old Testament, this is the 3rd edition by Andrew E. Hill and John H. Walton. This is also available for you to check out in my book library. So this is the textbook, and this textbook is, let's see how many pages is this. Textbook is 800 pages. And then you have a 47 lessons, right? 47 lessons in the video lectures, right? So together, this will give you everything you need to know about the New Testament and leaves no stone unturned. The second resource we have on the Patreon is this right here, a survey of the New Testament, the video lectures by Robert H. Gundry. This is 18 lessons. And then here's the textbook, 5th edition, right? And this textbook has, let's see, this textbook has about 600 pages, all right? Now, on the Patreon, we have this available for our serious students, and it's at the $20 tier because the $20 tier gives you access to the classes when they start. So the $20 tier gets you the video. Now, you can get this at the $10 tier, but the $20 tier gives you the video, and that goes the same thing for the Old Testament one. But now I have one of the OG resources. Again, I'll give you these resources. It's all on Patreon, right? This book right here is available on the Patreon. You can get on the Patreon from my library, right? But I just added this for the real serious students called Encountering the Holy Land, a video introduction to the history and geography of the Bible by Carl G. Rasmussen. He's also the author of this book right here, the Atlas, to help you to navigate the geography and history of the scriptures. A lot of people don't know geography, don't know what horticulture is and why the northern tribes were more particularly inclined to do horticulture, and why the northern tribes actually had more bread than the southern tribes, and why in the Negev they were more likely to be pastoralists, and where the Jordan River is at, where the depression of the Jordan River is at, right? Where's the coastal plains at? Where's the central countryside at, right? If I give you some site names, Tel Arad, where's that at? I mean, these are things that are very important that we need to equip ourselves with, because it all factors into why certain decisions were made by certain individuals in the text, right? So you get that in this atlas. It helps you to navigate it. And we have the video right here. It's on the Patreon. Check it out. It's in our video library. All right. So I want to make sure you're aware that I've been adding resources on there, even though there has been nothing for me personally. I have 2 blogs that's pending. I still got to add to them, but I've been putting resources on there. So if you waiting to say, okay, when is Divine going to have some content, right? Whether it's live stream or elsewhere, in the interim, equip yourself with the resources, right? So you can follow along with more so with the conversation, right? And that's my goal. My goal is to equip you with the knowledge. I can teach you all day, but I teach students to teach me. How do I teach students to teach me? By giving them the same sources, tools, and methodology that I use. And that's how you know you have a sincere teacher, because he's not creating a student to be relying on them 100%. He's teaching them to be self-sufficient and autonomous. And that's what I'm here to do. You hear the age-old Adam or idiom that says you can take a pole and fish for a man, but if you and feed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, he can feed himself for a lifetime. It's the same way with the knowledge, right? All praise to the Most High. All right. So Jacolius Gems, you said, what's the names of the books? Okay, well, these are on the Patreon, right? So it's for you, sis. A survey of the New Testament, a survey of the Old Testament, survey of the New Testament, survey of the Old Testament. And the other one is the Essential Atlas of the Bible. All right, somebody please put that in the chat for the sister. If y'all don't mind, help her out. All right. All right. I've been reading material that states ancient Israelites would be considered classical Unitarian. What your thoughts are? Well, Unitarian in the sense. So when you say ancient Israelites, are we talking about the pre-exilic Israelites, or are we talking about Second Temple Judaism Jews? Because things shift when we get into captivity. Prior to captivity, it was henotheism. Henotheism is what they were doing prior to captivity. And monolatrism, right? Monolatrism, monolatrism, is what they were doing in the pre-exilic period before captivity. So when we say Unitarian, we also have to kind of nuance that, because some Unitarians subscribe to the virgin birth. I don't subscribe to the virgin birth. Virgin birth is not something that's anywhere in the Tanakh, And historically, the Jewish Christians, that's what they're termed by academia, they also did not subscribe in the virgin birth. Virgin birth came mostly from a separate stream of the movement that came from Gentiles converting over into the movement. All right. So that's where we start to see that. And by the time these Gentiles come in, you have about 50 years later, or 40 to 50 years later, when we start to get the book of Matthew and the book of Luke that then proposes this idea of the virgin birth. But if you go to other manuscripts, like the one that I go to for the Brit Hadashah or the New Testament, and that is the Old Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest, right? There's no virgin birth supported in both Matthew and Luke in those gospels for that particular manuscript. And that's important. So the ancient Israelites were henotheists, and they practiced monolatrism, right? And monolatrism, right? Monolatrism simply means that there are many deities, but you single one out for worship, right? And henotheism is that there are many deities, but you single one out to be supreme. And from all the data that we have, the existential data, right, to the text that we have in the archaeological record and studying sister cultures, right, we see that this was the case. Even in the intertextual data, we see the same thing, that there was multiple deities. The text talks about a divine council, right? So when we say that phrase Unitarian, that phrase is a nomenclature nomenclature that is more, recent. But the earliest Israelites, when we say Unitarian, they were not Binitarian, they were not Trinitarian. So when we say Unitarian, we mean they only worship and they only see Yah as supreme. Yes, I would say yes, with some conditions, right? And I say with some conditions because you have to factor in henotheism and monolatrism. If you put in monolatrism and henotheism with that to nuance that, then yes, I would agree with that, right? So hopefully that answers that question, and appreciate all the research that you do, my brother. We appreciate that, right? So the question is, are the Bantu people Hebrew Israelites? Please excuse my ignorance in going off topic. All Bantu people are not Hebrew Israelites. All Bantu peoples are not Hebrew Israelites. Are there some Israelites within the Bantu people group? Yes, but when we say Bantu, Bantu is not a homogeneous group. Bantu just represents Bantu speakers. And there's several ethnic groups that make up Bantu speaking peoples, right? So all of them are not Israelites. And if somebody says that, that's a wild assertion that requires a lot of, minute study and disseminating that type of information, process and disseminate it to a way that's finely tuned that somebody can say, okay, you're right. They're all of them are. All of them are not Israelites. They're not all Israelites. Right. So I just want to make sure I say that. But again, to say that all of them are, that's really extreme. That's really extreme. Right. And there's sub languages, Tony, sub languages attached to that. Right. All right. So let me see. So Joe Bernie, people on Twitter are saying, man, y'all didn't even let me get into the announcements. Y'all jump right into the questions. I'm cool with that. All right, let me finish the announcement. So again, so on the Patreon, we do have new resources. So please, if you're not signed up for the Patreon, sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. All right. And get you access to these resources, read them, study up on them, get familiar with the data in them so you can be prepared for when we launch our classes. Right. So we have the classes you can get at a la carte, which is $40 a la carte, or you can get the classes for half off if you sign up for the Patreon at the $20 tier and above. Okay. All right. So lastly, also, just make sure you guys patronize KHM. We have programs, Jubilee Manumission, that helps with debt elimination, credit repair, and financial responsibility. We also have Naturopath to Eden, which is our naturopathic health consultation service. So we offer both of those programs with free consultations to the community and paid services. You can get those details or email us if you're interested in any of those things in the description below. Also, KHM, we have various services through the parent entity, which is KHM. We have religious exemption letters for COVID-19 and influenza, right, for both employers or universities if you go to school. We also have religious accommodation letters for those of you who want to observe the Sabbath and the feast days. And we also have another set of religious accommodation letters for those who need religious accommodation at work for wearing your beard, fringes, locks, head wraps, dresses, etc. So if you need those services, the links is in the description below. Also, we have several products for KHM. We have our calendar, which the link is in the description below. We have our Kasheb magazine, right, which is in the link below. We have our mixtapes, which you can email us about. We have our t-shirts. If you want to get a t-shirt, which you can email us about. We have our cast and lot set. We have a Silver Scrolls pendant. And now we're offering the Silver Scrolls necklace. All right. So if anybody's interested in these things, let me know. What I'm going to do is we're going to combine. So we have another necklace that goes with this pendant, right, that we'll be offering. We have one for women, one for men, and one for children, right? So if you're interested in those, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and we're going to go ahead and help you out. So thank you to everybody who's been patronizing the ministry, keeping it afloat, right, by do your donations, do your support, sharing our videos, getting the word out there. We appreciate everything that you guys do. Even though you may not hear much from me, the ministry is still ongoing. If you need anything, please reach out to us. We'll see what we can. We may not be able to get to everybody, but we're going to do our best to get to as many people as we possibly can. Just be patient with us, and it's okay to resend an email or a text or a call from time to time if we don't get to you, so that way we can stay on top of it, okay? We don't really have a lot of administration staff at the moment, so Sometimes we can be inundated with a lot of things that we get coming in, but we're doing our best to sort through things as best as we can. All right. And shout out to all those who responded to the e-cards that we've sent out. So we sent out e-cards to all of our members. We sent out e-cards to all of our Patreon patrons to say thank you, right? Just a note to let you know that we're thinking about you and we appreciate you. So thanks to everybody that responded. If you have not responded and you're a member or a patron, then you have to check your spam or whatever other filtered email you have, because we sent it out to everybody. All right. Because we do love you guys. We do appreciate you. And we do thank you for all your support. All right. We're going to continue to do what we can to equip the community, to empower you guys, to educate you, to, enlighten you, whatever needs to be done, educate you to get us to the next level. Because the goal of the KHM education wing, the scholarship ring, right? Or just in general, right? Our goal is to establish cultural autonomy in the Black community by means of research, education, and application, right? In said community. That is our goal. That is what we aim to do. And why do we do it? Because as a harbinger, we're a herald to let the world know that Yah's coming. But not just that, but also equip his people to receive him. That's what a harbinger does. They announce the arrival of a king, an army, or a dignitary, and then they prepare the people and a place for that dignitary to lodge. So in order for Yah to come and lodge with his people, the people must be prepared to receive him. And that's what we do. That's what we do it through culture, community, and autonomy, because these three things will enable us to be prepared to receive him when he comes. All praise to the Most High. All right. So with that being said, let's get back to business. Right. Thank you so much, Yah son. I appreciate that, King. I try to flood it with so much stuff, but there's so much stuff on here, man. Like I said, if you never hear from me in another couple of months, which I'm not saying will happen, but if you don't, just go to the Patreon. I mean, we have almost 900 posts on here, 900 posts with all types of stuff on there. You know what I'm saying? Or go to the community tab in YouTube and just scroll back. We have tons of stuff on there too. And I'm going to continue to put more. Like I said, taking care of all my personal responsibilities to make way for you guys. All right. Okay. So let me see. Shalom is the Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest an older manuscript, older than what you find in the KJV that we are all familiar with? If so, why is it not used today? All right, great question. And then I'm gonna go back and see other questions that's there. And see, what I'm gonna do. Let me answer this question. And then Michael, I see you in the background. So I'm gonna come to you in 1 second. All right. So just hold on 1 second, brother. All right. So the old Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest is dated. The actual palimpsest itself is dated to about the 4th century sometime, right? Sometime between the 3rd and 4th century, okay? So the latest date they give it is about 375 AD, right? The earliest they give it is about 325 AD, right? But the actual tradition, the textual tradition that it comes from is older than that, right? It goes much older than that. So when it comes to manuscripts for the KJV, so the KJV uses a text from what we call the majority text type, which comes through the Byzantine text, right? Which is late text. We're talking about text that's after the 7th, 8th century AD. And then, for the Old Testament, we have what we call the majority text from the Old Testament, which is represented by 2 codices, which is Codis, which is Codis Leningrad and Codis Aleppo, right? Those 2 codices represents the majority text type. Both of them used to be fully extant, which means they had all their pages, but the Aleppo one is missing some pages, some things are fragmentary. However, outside of the Aleppo, the Leningrad one is fully intact, and that comes from the Masoretic text type, right? So the ones we get from the majority text, from the Byzantine text types for the New Testament, all the way up until we get to the Textus Receptus, which is a much later text, right, that was devised and put together, then the Old Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest is older than all of those manuscripts. It's older than all of them, right? And then the question is, why is it not used today? Well, the reason why it's not used today is because there's heretical elements in it according to mainstream Trinitarian Christianity. Remember, I mentioned to you, there's no virgin birth. there's a story in it that sounds like it's a virgin birth, but there's 2 major elements that throws it off. One element makes Joseph the direct begetter of Jesus, which is consistent with the rest of the genealogy in the book of Matthew, chapter 1. That's heretical. And there's elements of it too. For example, the last chapter, Matthew chapter 28, most of it is gone. So therefore, we don't even have Matthew chapter 28 and 18, 19, etc. when people get the Great Commission. And then there's other little nuances in there that look a little weird. Matter of fact, when it was published by the people who found it, the sisters that found it, they came under scrutiny in their day. And this is the late 1800s for putting it out there. So the reason why is because they believe that the Greek text is the major text of the New Testament. Why? Because we have more copies of it, and there's fragments of it that go back all the way to at least 125 AD. So that's why they go with the Greek text, and some other reasons why they go with the Greek text, because it's a textual transmission, robustness, etc. Right? We don't have a lot of copies of the Old-Syriac Synoptic. As a matter of fact, the copy that we did have is no longer here. Right? Images was taken, it was transcribed, but the actual text is no longer here because it got lost, damaged, etc. Right? So that's why they're not going to say, okay, this is the standard text we're going to use for the New Testament, because it agrees with some elements of Jewish Christianity that existed in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century AD. So that's one of the reasons why they're not going to put that out there. But if you want to get your own version of it, and I've shared my book that I have with it. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. I'm going to show you what book to get for it. Okay. Hold on one second. All right. So this book is right here. It's called The Original Gospels by Mark A. Dumdye. Okay. So if you want this, what they do is they use Matthew from the text that I just mentioned, the Old-Syriac Synoptic Palimpsest. They also use Luke from Papyri 4 and 75, which you can see on the website called the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts. They also have the Book of John that they pull from Papyri 66, which is dated to about 125 AD. And they pull the Mark text from the Latin Codex Vercellensis, which is from 355 AD. So all these manuscripts, they don't have the difficult readings that we find in later manuscripts, right? According to the author. And also, all of these predate the King James Version. But your modern, what we call critical text edition Bibles, typically go back to the older manuscripts as well, right? So some of those are like the ESV, the New American Standard Bible, the NIV, the NLT, etc., right? So that's another conversation altogether. So hopefully that works. All right. Shout out to Jedediah in the building. Shalom King, what's going on? Sign of the Times. Main Street Christianity is blocking the Book of Enoch, Book of Jasher, the Pseudepigrapha, Book of Jubilees, the Maccabees, the Apocrypha, which you will need to understand the whole Bible timeline. The whole Bible timeline. Well, for me, the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Enoch, I would subscribe to those to an extent that it has enough veracity to support, right, the what we call the canon. However, the Book of Jasher that we have today, there's no way to prove that that's the Book of Jasher. Matter of fact, and I went over this. Matter of fact, you know what? After I speak to Michael, I'll probably address the Book of Jasher, because I had this conversation in Clubhouse, very interesting conversation, and I'll touch on that right in a second. The pseudepigrapha, you're saying, the pseudepigrapha are late texts, and it was not in heavy circulation, so we got to be careful with the pseudepigrapha as well, right? We got to go through each one to see if there's a degree of authenticity in them. A lot of them are not, but that's another conversation. Maccabees is important, I agree, for his history. The Apocrypha is a series of intertestamental works that were hidden. That's where the word Apocrypha comes from. So I don't think you need it to understand the Bible timeline, but it is helpful. But you do need Maccabees. And the Book of Enoch has this influence on the New Testament, so that makes sense to get, right? And also the Book of Jubilees, which is a commentary to Genesis to about mid book of Exodus, which is good by giving you commentary, right? Some older commentary on those texts, right? So those things do help. But if you want to understand the Bible timeline, there's a ton of other information and data that exists outside of just the things you listed that we would need as well. And that'll be another conversation for another day, right? But those things are helpful to know. I'm familiar with all of them. They are helpful to know, but you know. Let me see. Mish Mashful, welcome back. Who is wisdom in Proverbs 8? Who is wisdom? That's not a person. It's a literary device called personification. They're taking a what we call an abstract idea or concept, and they're giving it human attributes, Okay, Chokhmah is feminine in Hebrew, right? So Chokhmah, the reason why it's feminine because its agency is complementary to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, right? So it's not an actual being. It is a literary device called personification, right? Look up personification, literary device, and you'll understand what's playing out there. Now, there are some that propose that the entity that is personified in Proverbs 8 was actually the consort of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh that's actually laid out in the Bible itself, as opposed to extra biblical items that we have or artifacts that we have outside the Bible, right? So some propose that, right? And again, I've also tread that out and mentioned that before in the past, right? However, if we really want to be literal to the text, it is a literary device called personification. That's actually what's taking place there, right? And it's important because that word wisdom, it can also be a person, like an actual woman that we see mentioned elsewhere in the book of Proverbs. And again, that's another study. Matter of fact, if you go into the community tab, go back 2 years, I actually break that down. All right. All right. What book is that for the Hebrew Matthew about the virgin birth? The Old Syriac Sinaiticus Palimpsest. The OSS. That's what it's termed. Type Syriac OSS. Or go to the Patreon. It's on the Patreon, Tony. Go to the Patreon, type in Hebrew Matthew or type in OSS or Syriac Gospel or whatever, and it'll come up on the Patreon. You can check it out. All right. All right, y'all. So hold off on the questions. Let me get to our guest real quick. Jason Williams says, what textual criticism books would you recommend on New Testament manuscripts? Excellent question. There's one called Myths and Mistakes, and that deals with New Testament textual criticism. I would recommend that. Any work from Dan Wallace, I would recommend that as far as textual criticism, New Testament. Michael J. Kruger, any work from him, I recommend on textual criticism of the New Testament. But all you got to do is go to the Patreon, type in textual criticism, and you'll get your resources there. But I just mentioned a couple of authors and a book called Myths and Mistakes. Matter of fact, let me drop that in the chat from Amazon in case you want to purchase it. This is a good one for like beginners. If you're a beginner, you should start with beginner books, right? I'm gonna drop this one in the chat for y'all if you want to purchase it from Amazon. If you don't want to sign up for my Patreon, which gives you access to about almost 500 books. But let me post this here. There's the link. I don't know if it's all gonna post. Yeah, let me do this. Let me shorten that URL for y'all. Okay, here we go. All right, y'all gooch. There it is right there. Click on that link and get the book, all right? And read that book, all right? All right. All right, so hold off. We're gonna hold off for a second. Let me bring on Michael real quick.
Hey, Divine, how you doing, brother?
What's going on, King? Hold on 1 second, brother. Let me make sure I got everything right for you. Okay. All right, brother. What's going on, man? You a chill brother, man. What's going on, man?
Yeah,
what's
I'm relaxing. I'm listening. I'm listening to. Man, I respect your scholarship, bro. I caught you one time in a debate. I don't watch you on a regular basis, and the reason I asked you the question is because I do respect your scholarship. I noticed you go on, go back to the timeline where they came from. I don't know where white people come from, bro. I'm dead serious when I ask that question.
So when you say you don't know where white people came from, meaning you have no idea, you're saying, right?
I mean, you hear about the Nephilim, they possibly came from the breeding of that and things of that nature. But me, personally, from the people that I've asked, that I respect their scholarship, and from the research that I've done, I can't figure it out.
Gotcha. All right. So what I'm going to do is try to find a way to be as concise as possible because I did share those links. Did you copy those links down that I sent in the chat?
I didn't mean to jump into the streamline. I didn't see any other link. This was the link that I seen. That's the only reason why I jumped in streamline. I didn't want to interrupt the show with this question.
Oh, no, you good. You
talk
good.
about the
so let me add that. Let me go back to it real quick. Matter of fact, can somebody one of the mods go back and repost those links? One of the ones is the Bible and the Black community, and the other one is from Esau to Zionism, right? And where the Edomites come from. So if somebody can grab those links, post it in the chat for the brother, What I can also do, my brother, if you can email me, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and that email is also in the description below, then I can also send you those videos. But I'm going to try to give you a concise answer. So when we say where do white people come from, with me, the way that I study what we call transdisciplinary, which means I look across several disciplines to gather data, and I use that data to come to a conclusion that addresses various streams of information on the subject matter. So when we talk about white people, then I have to look at several things. I got to go through biology. I got to go through genetics. I got to go through geography. I got to go through diet. I got to go through migration routes. I got to go through DNA, right? More particularly the R1 migration of that going in from the Caucasus region into Europe and displacing the native people that live there, right? We also got to go, if we use the Bible as a piece of literature to answer as well, then I got to go and look at locations, right? So when we look at Genesis chapter 10, it explains at that time, and I want to say at that time, I'm talking about the person who wrote the final redaction of what we have in Genesis 10. They lay out for you what's typically called the table of nations, right? So you have Yefeth, you have Ham, and you have Shem, right? And then they go and they populate different regions, right? Now, one interesting thing, and this is why I recommend an atlas to people. In this atlas, there's actually a map of that settlement, of where those people groups went, where they settled, etc. That's important to know the geography of these regions because it can help you to pinpoint where these people groups come from. Now, what I will say is the Bible does have some limitations because the Bible is only dealing with a particular area of the world, right? It's not dealing with the whole
world. Is dealing with,
correct.
Yeah.
So therefore, if we're gonna start with Noah and his sons, then in Genesis 10 it gives us an explanation of these various people groups. So let's go look at it now. If somebody's saying that white people come from Nephilim, that's wild. And the lecture I'm doing, it tackles the Nephilim question, right? The Nephilim, the individuals that come from Nephilim, the people groups like the Anakim, the Emim, all of these offshoots that come from those Nephilim, they have no lineage that goes back to Japheth, right? Okay. So if these entities do exist and we say that they created white people, that's very interesting because the areas that they actually mingled with people at were people of color. So how the hell did white people come out from that union, right? That's neither here nor there. People will say, okay, well, if Noah was a person of color, right, even though he's purported to be very white, like an albino in other texts, that's neither here nor there. But let's say that he did have Afrocoid features. When we say Afrocoid features, we have things that are typical of wide noses, big lips, right? Jawbone, etc., right? Cranium size, all of that. And let's say that he represents that and he has 3 sons. And out of these 3 sons, you're telling me that a white person came out these 3 sons? Some people will say that. And some people will say, well, white people, as far as people whose pigmentation differs based on eumelanin and pheomelanin, right? That helps to determine the pigmentation of skin and also the melanocytes that's in the melanin that's in your skin, right? That's why you got to go into biology and study pigmentation, right? Skin pigmentation and the various mutations that happens with skin pigmentation, and then you can determine how far back things go, right? And this can be done. For example, there was a mummified individual called Otzi the Iceman. Have you heard of him before?
No.
He was mummified in ice, which means he still had elements of his skin intact. Same thing with the mummies from Egypt. They still had some of their skin intact. Now, obviously, it's not going to look like ours because they're dead, but you can do a biopsy from that, and then from there, you can actually get down to a genetic level and determine the receptors that are mutated that's necessary for producing the various pigmentations that we see, and we can determine what those people look like as far as skin pigmentation. But skin pigmentation is not the whole story in regards to ethnicity, and a lot of people would think that, right? Because if it depends on where you think that human beings come from, right? That's another conversation.
Like how white people can consume different things in their diet. I don't mean to cut you off, but
and they have various genetic diseases that people of color don't have. And people of color have genetic diseases that people who are considered white do have, and vice versa, right? So, and there's some disease that we share because of intermingling, right? And then if you look at certain DNA will show you that there are certain continental Africans who do not have any Neanderthal DNA. Anybody that is considered a descendant of those who migrated out of Africa or that region of the ancient Near East, where we did have Neanderthalensis, which is a hominid that was in that region, did intermingle until those hominids died off and Homo sapiens sapiens survived. That's another conversation as well. You know what I'm saying? Those who mingled with them. But the Bible is not going to give you all that information because the Bible is not trying to deal with that. When I
just find it confusing because my understanding, of course, Black people was the first all over the world. You have Europeans, you know, they considered, whenever you hear the blanket statement European, you automatically assume white, but the first Europeans that were Black, they were
people of color.
People.
Yeah, like the Etruscans is one great example of those people.
I've heard you lecture on Khazars, Russians. Okay. Is that the area where you're saying Japheth went?
Did I say Japheth went there? Yeah. Well, it's purported that he went that far, but when we look at the actual text itself, it covers what we know as the Near East by way of at least during the rule of Alexander the Great. So the known world by the time of Alexander the Great is what is represented in what we see in Genesis chapter 10. Why do I say that? It's because the text was redacted, right? All the way up until that point. Why? Because if you read Maccabees, one of the brother who mentioned that Sign of the Times mentioned the book of Maccabees, you'll see that the Greeks burnt all the Israelites' books, right? They went on a tirade and they burnt their books. And what you'll see is a lot of the pseudepigraphal works, Book of Enoch and all of that, they go back to a Greek text written by Jews. How do we know Jews wrote that Greek text? Because we have Hebrewisms in there, Aramaisms in there, right? Which indicates that the author who wrote it, that was his native tongue, or he's bilingual. So what that means is that we had a renaissance during the Hasmonean dynasty after the Maccabean revolt, where we started to produce more of our works. And that happened during that Grecian period, where the Greeks were still in control until we were usurped from within and the Romans came and took over, right? Starting with Pompeii.
That's when time started over. That's the thing, right? 70 AD, how it went from to the Julian calendar. I think
you said what? Say it again.
Okay, the temple, the second temple being destroyed, 70. All right. I find a lot of contradictions in secular history. All right.
Okay.
When you look in an encyclopedia and you look for the oldest civilization, what comes up?
The oldest civilization is going to be the Sumerians or the Egyptians. So
usually I come up with Sumerians, right? However, now check this out.
It's going to be both. It's going to be both as far as the earliest. So when we look at all of the factors that determine civilization, you have it also in Egypt in the south. And then you have it in Sumer, which is on another side of the Fertile Crescent, right? So both of those areas do have signs of early civilization. So we do see it. So I don't argue against that. Matter of fact, if you want a good book on it, there's a book called Visible Language. Right. In that book, it details that. So we can see like the earliest, what we call petroglyphs, right? This is images that are written on rocks and then they then end up on pottery. And then we start seeing over time, they start to work their way into intelligible written language. So we see that from Sumer, starting with the cuneiforms, which is primarily being used for like transactions and receipts, as opposed to what we see on the side of the Egyptians is more so for communicating things between guilds and things along those lines, right? But I'll drop that link in the chat, and also I can send it to you after this whenever you email me to make sure you have everything that I'm talking about. You can go back over it. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So if this go with the Sumerians. So go ahead, let's go with the Sumerians.
No, the reason being is because this is my point. Secular, some of the secular history, I find it to be confusing. They kept the history of the Torah, according to Wikipedia, wherever they reference that from, because they kept the Pentateuch, the first 5 books. The Sumerian. So if they're the first civilization, how is that possible?
Wait. You said so. The Pentateuch is a Greek word for the Chumash. So that refers to the first 5 books of Moshe, right? Moses, right? So though the Pentateuch was translated in about the 2nd century BCE from a Hebrew text that existed. So there's a textual critic of the Hebrew Bible called Emmanuel Tov, and he writes about this, right? So that's the Pentateuch. Now the Samaritans And the Sumerians are two different people groups. Sometimes people interchange them by accident.
When I read it, says Sumerian specifically, not Sumerian.
So Sumer, Sumer is in modern day Iraq, right? Along the Tigris and Euphrates River. That's where Sumer was. It was a city there. And then you get Babel, right? Or Bible. Well, Byblos is in Phoenicia, but Babel, where we get Babylon or Bavli, is in that region as well, right? So that is nowhere near the Levant region where the Samaritans would be at, which are considered peoples from the northern tribes, right? Or where the Jews were at from the southern kingdom. So the Pentateuch was translated by Jews in Grecian captivity. They translate that because Alexander the Great wanted Hellenism to be a way of bringing together all of the people groups in the world by introducing them to Greek culture, language, history, etc.
Like Catholicism, a version of it beforehand.
Yeah, correct. So Catholicism literally just means universalism. Yeah,
same thing.
So the Pentateuch.
I'm still confused though, because what I looked up, it said the Sumerians kept a record. The only reason I'm saying this is because if that's the case, that means that the Rim was around before the Sumerians. If they kept a record, that was the only thing I was getting at. The Hebrew was before them, if that was the case. I looked to see what civilization came first.
Yeah. So let's do this, right? So Hebrew totally didn't come before the Sumerian language. Sumerian language predates Hebrew, right? So Hebrew, so there's some people who are religious zealots and fanatics that would say Hebrew is the oldest language, right? Now, if you say that, that is only from one particular lens. That's not taking into account all the languages that exist on the world, right? Matter of fact, let me share something real quick. I want to show you something real quick, right? All right, so hold on, right? I'm going to give this right here. This is a document. It's called the Bayesian phylogenetic analysis of Semitic languages, identifies an early Bronze Age origin of Semitic in the Near East, right? And there's ways that we can show, like even Akkadian, which is an East Semitic language, predates Hebrew, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this link in the chat. You can click on where it says download PDF for those of you who are interested, and you can see at what time period, according to secular history, that Hebrew came on the scene, right? And that's important, right?
They have stuff that date back to 8,000 pottery, like you said.
Yeah.
Hebrew writing on it, and Hebrew writing on the subterranean walls of Ramesses as well too.
Well, so 8,000 BCE, we don't have any writing. We do have glyphs, like petroglyphs that people put on rocks, right? We do have those images, right? Because that's a form of art. Like if you go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and you go to the Ancient Near Eastern Wing, you'll see all types of old art that comes before established civilizations, right? So I'm just trying to give you the timeline. So the Sumerian culture comes about 3,500 BCE to 3,300 BCE. That's when they come about, and then they're
that's it. Not longer, not further back.
No,
not further back.
No, then they're succeeded by the Akkadian culture, which takes over the Sumerian culture, and that's how we learned that Sumerian is a language isolate. Because when you, like, for example, in English, right, there are words in English that are not natively English, that come from other cultures. You'll see a lot of that in like the discipline of science or medicine, where they take a lot of Greek words and they make it English words, right? But they don't come from English. And the way we know that is the way that they're spelled, because English has a particular morphology in how words are written. And when something's spelled outside of that morphological bank of how the words visually look, we'll say, oh, that can't be an English word. Even though it may be used in English, we know it's not an English word. So what they did was they took a whole lexicon that they were able to get from all the literature that they pulled from Akkadian, and they start to see words that doesn't fit the Akkadian or Semitic language, and it's spelled much differently, right? Just like if I told you about somebody's name is Gustav. Well, Gustav is not an English word. But if I say that's somebody's name, you'd be like, wait, that's not English, because it doesn't have the vernacular of English. It doesn't look English. So you know it's foreign. So that's what they sort of do and pull and start seeing that this people group that they conquered called the Sumerians had a totally different language isolate than Semitic. It's not even considered Semitic language. There's now some people try to force it to be Semitic. It's not Semitic language. And what you'll see is that all the scholars of Sumerian language, and it's not that many of them, I can count them on my hands, their consensus is it is a language isolate and it's not nowhere related to Hebrew. Hebrew comes much later, right? But the Sumerian as a people group were one of the earliest civilizations, because we do see things like agriculture. We do see things like art. We do see things like literature, right? We do see these various elements, these houses that are built in communal communities, like for permanent residence and not just being mobile. You know what I'm saying? So we do see all these elements from those people groups, and they did have a rule, and we do even have a king's list from them and all types of stuff. So we know they existed. Now that is again 35 to about 3300 BCE.
It seems so like the stuff that I'm reading.
Well, what are you reading? Do you have anything in front of you?
I'm going to send the references. Most of it comes from Wikipedia, and you know they have their set references.
No, but that's fine. So the thing about Wikipedia is not bad. You just got to go to the bibliography at the bottom and go back and verify the sources. Yeah. So if there's a source there, and it's saying something about Sumerians at 8000 BC.
No. Those are two separate.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The pottery that was found was 8,000 years old. That's
So we have old pottery. Yeah, definitely. We have old pottery.
As far as they didn't have a timeline or a time frame. See, the question in hand was, because I'm always having conversations with brothers trying to because I don't go to any camps or anything like that. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Everything that I get is from building with brothers and stuff like that. So like, you come across a brother and they be saying, you know, Jeebus, and they be messing with, you know, the whole Jeebus thing. You know what I'm saying?
What do you mean when you say Jeebus? What does that mean?
What I mean, bro? They be dogging Yahusha. Yeshua.
So people call him Jeebus?
Yeah, instead of Jesus, Jeebus. They'd say whatever, Yawasaki, instead of saying Yahusha. They be dogging.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah, typically when people say that, they mean it in a derogatory fashion.
Yeah, in a derogatory way, because they're saying he's not mentioned in the Old Testament. It's different. You got to figure who wrote each book.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? At what time?
That's interesting when people say that somebody's not written in the Old Testament. The last time I checked, nobody in the Maccabean period written in the Old Testament. But they
who wrote Maccabees during that? What time? Who wrote Maccabees? That
was during the Grecian captivity, right? So that's anywhere from 200, late 200 BCE to about
would they have been Hellenized by then?
BC. You said what?
Would they have been Hellenized by then?
Some of the Jews, not all of them. And that was the issue. That's what they was fighting against, because of the slaughtering of a pig on the altar.
On the altar, yeah.
By Antiochus IV, right? So anyway, let's get back to what we're talking about. So forget that. So according to civilization, the Pentateuch, again, that was during Hellenization, because of the Greeks who at the time, the successors of the Seleucids and the Ptolemies, successors of Alexander the Great, they wanted all the cultures, works that existed, they wanted it all translated to Greek to put it in the library of Alexandria, right? And other places, Caesarea, etc. So the Pentateuch is a result of that. The first 5 books were translated as a result of that. The letter of Aristeas is the only thing that we really have that talks about the Pentateuch, right?
So I completely misinterpreted that. The way I took it was that the Sumerians kept that history because the way it was written. I wish I had kept the reference so I could read it to you verbatim. I'll send it to your email. And that jogged something in me, because to my understanding, Sumerians are the oldest civilization. How are they keeping records of the Hebrew if Hebrew wasn't around? But you're saying that came later on, right before the Septuagint and all these other
so the Septuagint in the form that we have today, we start to see the earliest forms of those. So we have fragments of them, but in the 4th century, they start being included in codices. So codices are books that are pretty much scrolls that are folded in what called folios and have a leather bounded backing and cover to protect those folios, right? So Christians, when they came on the scene, were the first ones to create our modern day book, because they were on the run and being persecuted. So it was very difficult to hold a bunch of scrolls with you. and you're on the run. So they found a ingenious way of folding those things and writing them on those folios, those papyri folios, and putting them in a leather-bound book or vellum book cover, or whatever the case may be, and wrapping it up so that you can take multiple scrolls with you, right? You can have a whole mobile scroll library, right? So when we start to see the 4th century, we have like Codex Alexandrinus, Codex Vaticanus, Codex Washingtonianus, and all types of other codices that have what we call the Septuagint in them, right? And which is the whole entire Tanakh, right? Prior to that, you'll see more of the Pentateuch, or the first 5 books, in the Greek. So you're talking about who are the caretakers of those that text, the Pentateuch? Well, there wasn't really any caretakers because it wasn't standardized, and a lot of people were just copying it. So there was no standard version, right? So you have different fluctuating variants between various forms of the Septuagint, right? Because there was no standard, you know what I'm saying? But the Sumerians have nothing to do with that, because by the time the Pentateuch comes on the scene, they're already gone. They're off the scene. The Samaritans from Samaria, which was the capital of the northern tribes before they went into Assyrian captivity in 721 BCE, right? The Samaritans, they have their own version of the Torah, right? So they were the caretakers of their own version of the Torah, which maintains a script that is the closest to Paleo-Hebrew than what's found in the Masoretic text. Masoretic text uses the Aramaic square script. The Samaritan Pentateuch, or Torah, their Torah scrolls, has a script that is very close to the Paleo-Hebrew. The only other Paleo-Hebrew script that we see similar to that is amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls. One of those scrolls is 4Q22, which is a scroll from the book of Exodus, and that is completely written in Paleo-Hebrew, right?
Okay. Well, okay.
So when you talk about, so that's what I'm saying. Some people confuse Sumerians with Samaritans, but the Samaritans did have it. So they have a scroll called the Abisha scroll, which is believed to be their standardized text in regards to the Samaritan Pentateuch. But they have had other versions prior to that one. That one is not the oldest, but through data outside of their community, it could be dated to go back to at least maybe the 1st, 2nd century BCE, right? When the Samaritans version came on the scene. They claim it goes back further than that, all the way to Joshua, right? But if we're looking at it realistically, it goes back to at least the 2nd century BCE. And there's markers that we can look at that determine the way we put it in this chronology, you know what I'm saying? But I think that's what you're talking about. So they have their version of Pentateuch. There are things that are different, like
I might have misunderstood it.
So Mount Gerizim is different than Mount Sinai. So they say the covenant was made at Mount Gerizim in their Pentateuch, the Samaritans. However, in the text that we have, it's at Mount Sinai the covenant was made, right? So that is another thing that makes them divergent in regards to which one is supreme, which one is more accurate. And this is something that's been going back and forth between Jews and Samaritans for a lengthy period of time. Dare I say, at least.
And how high a regard do you hold the codexes and everything that was written in the Greek? Because that was after, that ain't our people that wrote that. So how high regard?
Our people did write Greek. So for
example,
would
have been Hellenized, though, those people that wrote that, wouldn't they?
That's not necessarily true. So an example of a Hellenized Jew is like Philo of Alexandria, right? So he was a Jew that was fully Hellenized, but he still held to the Torah, but he saw the Torah through a Grecian lens, right? He's an example of somebody that is Hellenized. However, Josephus was part of the Pharisaic sect as well as a zealot who fought in that first Jewish-Roman war. That's what they call it, right? He was a Pharisee, but the text we have of his is in Greek today. It's not in his original tongue, which would have been Aramaic. It's in Greek, but he's not Hellenized, and he was fighting against the Romans. So somebody can write something, be bilingual. You can learn another language, which Josephus says is very difficult. The Greek is difficult for the Jews, but you can learn that language without being Hellenized, so you can communicate with Hellenized Jews. And this is what we see also with the New Testament. So the book of Matthew was believed to be written in Aramaic using the Aramaic square script, and it was survived in the Syriac text that came after it, right? This is what is proposed. However, another version of Matthew came out, which was in Greek, And when you read at least the Greek version of Matthew, there's so many Aramaisms in it that scholars say that whoever wrote this was bilingual, or Greek was not their first language. Greek was their second language, but they're communicating it to other Jews. Now, if you get something like Luke is written in great, excellent Greek. So
perfect Greek.
So that person who wrote that is not a Jew. Whoever wrote that is not a Jew. Yeah. There's Israelites that say that, Luke was a Jew, but I'm like, this represents him being a Jew. And Josephus says how difficult the Greek language is. We see Mark is Greek, but it's very rough. Matthew is a little bit better, right? Because remember, Matthew was a publican. He had to communicate with the Romans when it came to taxes. So he had to know languages outside of his own native language in order for him to do his job. And it's the same thing with a lot of us, right? So a friend of mine, he's black, but he's in IT, but he had to learn Spanish to work his IT job. But that's not his native language, right? And native speakers know you don't have really the best Spanish, but it's functional, right? That I can actually teach you how to troubleshoot stuff or whatever.
No, I get it, because they're mixing. They're going back and forth doing business, and I get it. Bringing the culture over, mixing the cultures and stuff like that.
And thank you, Dora Yahoo. I meant Mount Ebal. Sorry, he was right. Mount Ebal. Gerizim is attested in both texts, but Mount Ebal, you're right. Okay, brother, what you saying?
Divine.
What's going on?
I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your scholarship. I'm leaving this conversation more confused than when I jumped in originally, which is a good thing.
Well, yeah, that's why I always post the link, because there's a lot of miscommunication sometimes that happens in the chat. So I post the link so I can get on and just talk. You know what I'm saying? Because when there's a heart to heart and face to face, the energy is different than in the chat when you can't see the person, and it's hard to determine how genuine they are. You know what I'm saying? So
I really don't know where white people come from. I've been asking and studying. I just can't.
So let's do this. We should have a separate session. So in my description, there's a link you can click on, so we could do a one-on-one. Click on that, look at my calendar, align it with yours, schedule a date, and that's all we will talk about. Where do white people come from?
Okay. Well, I appreciate you, brother. And I'm going to do my research, definitely.
Yeah, you're a good brother. Listen, I've seen you in here before, right? I never received any weird vibe from you, right? You've always been authentic. That's why I give you the link and said, look, just jump on and let's talk. So people can see that. You know what I'm saying? That you are genuine, you mean well, and you are on a search. And like you said, you're not getting information from just one fountain. And I respect that, right? Yes. Because you never know. See, with me, I teach, but I tell people, here's the resources. You see, while we was talking, I gave maybe 5, 6 different resources. I don't want nobody to take my word for anything, because I can mislead you. But if I give you the tools and the methodologies on how to study, then you can go back and fact check me to see if I was saying something true or not. For example, my brother Dero Yahoo and other brothers and sisters in here, sometimes they come and correct me. No, divine is this. No, divine is that. And in haste and speaking, sometimes I may overspeak, and I'll go back and say, you know what, they're right. And I'll just say, yeah, they were right on that. And that is the beauty of having a community that are all coming together in order for us to put out the information, so we have a consensus amongst ourselves by holding each other accountable. And the only way that a teacher can do that is by giving the student all the tools to fact check the teacher. When you don't have a teacher that does that, you got to be very leery to find out what is their motive. You know what I'm saying? It could be something totally different. They could be setting up a whole cult and you don't even know about it. You know what I'm saying? Or they could just be fleecing you for money. You know what I'm saying? Or say, oh, you got to be part of our group in order for us to give you this information. That's cult-like activity. You know what I'm saying? But that's neither here nor there, my brother. Thank you for joining. Like I said, click that link. Let's have a one-on-one, and we can really build, okay?
Much love. Enjoy the show, bro. Have a good one. Peace.
Peace. All right. Good brother right there. And I'm glad we got to talk. You know what I'm saying? And clear things up. And typically that's what I try to do. I don't know what Keith was saying in the chat earlier, but that's neither here nor there. All right. Now let me break down what I want to show you real quick, right? I'm gonna break this down and I'm gonna close out. Unless there's another question. I don't know if you have another question. Let me see. So Kifa Dawood Yafa Yahoo says, just came in, but wouldn't the next question be, what are the qualifications to be classified as a Semitic language, and is there any gray area? Let me give you a book on that. Because I can only say but so much in this limited period of time. I'm going to give you a book. And it's going to break down everything you need to know about Semitic languages, my brother. I got you. So let me get this link. I'm going to drop it in the chat for y'all. And the name of this book is called The Semitic Languages, right? Edited by Robert Hertzron, excuse me. And I'm going to drop it in the chat for you right here. Okay, that's for you, Kefa, right? Click that link and you'll have your answer, okay? And I also shared the other link to download the article on how they approximate the origin, earliest origin, Bronze Age origin, early Bronze Age origin of the Semitic language, okay? All right. So anytime, I got you, Kifa. Anytime, my brother. All right, so look, oh yeah, so thank you, Solomon. And that's exactly what I'm getting to right now. Let me show it to y'all real quick, okay? Let me show you this. Watch this. And this is what messes people up in regards to the book of Jasher, in regards to the actual scriptures itself. I want to show you something, right? Let's go to 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 18. 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 18, but we got to start a few verses up for context. I want to show you something, okay? We're going to start at verse 11, okay? Very important. Matter of fact, you actually do got to read from verse 1, but let's go through it together. I want to show you this real quick. And if there's another question or two, I'll take it. Otherwise, I'm going to close out so this session is not too lengthy. We're already on an hour and 34 minutes. We got about 30 more minutes, all right? Let me get into this, okay? Oh, man. Pause. I don't know what you mean by that, brother. Are you talking about knowledge, information, data, books? What do you mean by that, brother? You gotta qualify with what's going on with that question, my brother. I know you put the pause, but I'm just trying to figure that out. Shout out to my brother Kenny. Life is good, fam. Always love these sessions. You know what? Life is good, and it works for the good for those who are called according to His purpose. That synergy, synergios, that synergy. What is the synergy? The synergy is all parts considered are greater than each individual part. So all parts considered as a whole is greater than each individual part, which means that your good, bad, and ugly makes up your purpose. Somebody missed that. Your good, bad, and ugly is what speaks to where you're at today. Your good, bad, and ugly is what creates the synergy to give you everything you need to continue to move forward. The good, bad, and ugly. You need each individual part together because as a whole is greater than each individual part in isolation. If you have too much good, that's not good. There's no balance there. But that's neither here nor there. That's another conversation. I'm gonna fall back. Oh, you talking about how much meat, meaning that like animal flesh that we should consume, right? Dietary wise. Okay, so it all depends, right? So technically you can't eat meat every day as a source of protein, or you can substitute that and you can eat plant-based meat, right? And there's benefits for both. Like you get more heme or iron in actual meat from animals than you get from plant-based proteins, right? But in ancient times, I'll say this, those ancient peoples did not eat meat every day. It was too expensive to eat meat every day. They did not eat meat every day. Did they eat it once a week? Possibly. Did they eat it every month? Yes. But they didn't eat it every day? No, they didn't eat it. They actually supplemented it in what's called the med diet. Did a whole lecture on that. The med diet, if you look at the med diet and you source your diet from the med diet, all the components and ingredients that make up the med diet, you have a whole bunch of different varieties and recipes you can make up from the med diet outside of just the meat sources from the med diet, like lamb and fish and all of that. You can get everything you need to sustain your health. Matter of fact, the med diet works so well in the African-American community that studies have shown that it decreases CVD, cardiovascular disease, which is the #1 killer of African-Americans in this country. I'm going to recede that. Let's step back. Shout out to my sister Santuana building. Shalom, sis. Shalom and condolences out to you and your family again. So should we only consume fruits? Of course not. There are fruitarians that exist, but there's even in the realm of what we call homeopathic medicine, naturopathic medicine. When you talk to dietitians, clinical dietitians, etc., they will never recommend you to eat all fruits. There's so many things you miss that fruits don't give you. It's very difficult to get everything you need in a DV, daily value percentage of all the things that the body needs, right? Which is your minerals, trace minerals, ultra trace minerals, right? Everything you need, you cannot get it simply from just fruits. Fruits are missing a various amount of things. Matter of fact, there are some exotic fruits that have these items, but most people in this country cannot get access to that. You have to be well-traveled or have a means to import X amount of fruits in order to get everything you need from a fruit-based diet. We've never seen in history any human beings in history, right, prior to our modern day, that ever survived on a fruit-based diet alone. Never seen that. If somebody has something to prove that, please drop the link in the chat. But that's not there. That's not there. So when we say plant-based meat, Avia, let me qualify what I'm saying. You can get plant-based meat outside of the processed plant-based meat that you get from the store. So there are things that we can get that we grow when the weather's nice, such as a whole variety of different beans. You can get the best protein simply from a bean-based diet, and you can grow your own beans. And if you don't know how, if you don't have that green thumb to do it outside, get you an aero garden and grow it inside, right? Peas as well is another source of protein, right? That you can grow yourself and eat yourself. And there's other things outside of peas and the pea family and beans and the bean family that you can use to supplement your plant-based protein, right? Now, you can also get plant-based protein that is minimally processed, that keeps much of the nutrients still intact. And you can go to places like Whole Foods, Sprouts, and or other sources outside of that. Like a good place to get that type of stuff would be a farmer's market, right? A genuine farmer's market, and you can get other sources of that. So there's various ways that you can mix up your diet if you just want to go one route. You know, people ask me, Divine, are you a vegan? No, I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegan. Why? Because I like variety in my diet. And that is the way that you should eat, because human beings, since we came on the scene, that's how they've been eating. People say, oh, no, what about Adam? Adam ate every plant. Well, according to the scripture, in Eden, where's Eden at? I don't see Eden. Where's the tree of life? Y'all know where I can go to the tree of life at? Where's that at? Still looking for that thing. Where's the tree of life? In Eden, that was the ideal diet for man, because Eden was yielding for man without thorns or thistles, without resistance. Man could just go and gather, right? Retrieve and eat from all of the plentiful things that was in the garden. The scripture says that he made a garden, a gan, and he placed the man in it to tend the garden. And man can eat anything that was in that garden except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Well, that doesn't exist today, so that's not there. So what happens? And I went over this before. So y'all got me in a totally different, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to show you something, right? Let's go to the book of Genesis. I want to show you something. I was trying to go to Samuel, but let's go to Genesis. It's okay. I'll divert for a second, right? Because diet is a big thing to people. So let's go to Genesis. I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 5. All right, let me show you this real quick. Y'all got me somewhere else, man. Hold on. No, it's okay. It's okay. I do this because I love y'all, man. Wherever we need to go, we need to go. That's just what it is. Let's see where we at. Genesis chapter 5. All right, let me show you something, okay? Watch this. Genesis chapter 5, verse 28. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he fathered a son and called his name Noah, saying, out of the ground, watch this, that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief. And you see there's a little D footnote right here. You see that in Critical Edition Bibles, right? Noah sounds like the Hebrew word for rest, right? But look what it says. From our work and from the painful toil of our hands. Okay, so look, Lamech said this about Noah, that out of the ground that the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief or rest from our work and from the painful toil of our hands. What is going on? Let's go to Genesis chapter 3. Right? Let's jump down to verse 17. And to Adam, he said, this is Yah speaking to Adam because he disobeyed the commandment, because you have listened to the voice of your wife and have eaten, remember food, diet, we're talking about eaten of the tree, which I commanded you, you shall not eat. Cursed is the ground because of you. Why? Because you ate the tree. You actually cursed the ground. How you did that? That's a whole nother lecture, right? Cursed is the ground because of you. In pain you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Now, why is the earth cursed? Because Adam ate of a tree that he was commanded not to eat. Well, that goes back to Genesis chapter 1. No, this is a whole, we just going back in a recessive time. But let's go back to Genesis chapter 1 and see why, right? Again, some of this is in my lecture coming up, but that's neither here nor there. In Genesis chapter 1, right? Going to verse 26. Then God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and let them have what? Dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth. You see that? And over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. Verse 28. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and what? Subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every little thing that moves on the earth. And God said, behold, I've given you every plant, yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth. You see that? And every tree with seed in its fruit. So I've given you. So I've given you dominion of all the works of my hands. I've given you dominion over the earth. And I've also given to you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And then now we see additional stipulations come in Genesis chapter 2. So we going back in the recesses of time. So man was given dominion over the earth to subdue it, to have dominion over it, right? So when man, and again, I'm going to show you this and again, you're taking me somewhere different in the Targum. I'm going to show you something interesting. But when Adam decides that he's going to disobey a commandment from Yah, he has yielded his dominion over. He's yielded it over. He's yielded his dominion over. So now he no longer has dominion of the earth, which if he had it, everything would stay in perfect harmony and continue in the Sabbath rest that Yah intended for man, right? Where everything would yield to him. But now that you've given that dominion over, you've given it over to be cursed by entity that is crouching to, let's see what that enemy is crouching at. Let's go to Genesis chapter 4. All right. And let's jump down in verse 8. Cain spoke to Abel, his brother, and excuse me. Let me go up further. I'm sorry. Let's go to verse 5. But for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. So Cain was very angry and his face fell. The Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, watch this. If you do not do well, let's take a look to see. We're talking about if we do not do well. If you do not do well, right? Here's your word here for do well. What word looks there? Tov. Let's take a look. That word that we get there, the root word for yotav, which means good, which is similar to the word tov that we have that means good, well, acceptable, right? You get to see other words there. Genesis 12 and 13. That may go well with me. 12 and 16. Therefore, he treated, prosper, 32 and 9. So here's the thing, right? Yatav is saying that you would do well. Now, that word well there is a verb in the hethal stem, the causative. You will be accepted. If you will not be caused to do well, he says, right? If you will be accepted. But if you don't do it, or if you're caused not to do it, you see that? The hethal is the causative, caused not to do it. Then it says what? At your door is where sin lies, and for you has its desire. Same word desire we see there in Genesis chapter 3. But you shall rule over it. You see that? What happened was, not only did Adam have dominion over the earth and all the works of Yah's hands, but the entities that were relegated to the earthly realm, like the like the serpent, the Nakash, that serpent one, that bronze one, that entity that is a seraph that I showed you on Numbers, those entities were on the earth. Anything that was on the earth, Adam had dominion over. Whatever was in that realm, he had dominion over it to subdue it. He has to subdue, which we see is as a comparison to the word we have here of kimthal, which means to rule. It's similar. It's equated, which means Adam yielded that over. Because he yielded that, the earth is responding because Adam was the master of the earth. It's now responding to Adam in adversity, in opposition, because now it's been corrupted. That's like somebody, like a parent who poisons a child, and the child realizes that the parent has poisoned them and they're about to die. But before they die, they get angry and they try to attack the parent. Why? Because this is somebody that I trusted, that I loved, that I adored, that I looked up to, that I respected, that was my authority, my head, and they betrayed me. So now, and it's not just in that, I give you an extreme situation. It could be a family member, a friend who betrays you. So now you deal with them differently. You don't deal with them when you was yielding and giving them an open arm to them. Now you're going to be withdrawn. Now you're going to keep at a distance. Now you're going to be adversarial towards them because they betrayed you. This is what Adam did to the earth and yielded its dominion over to some other entity. And now we get more information on this entity when we go to Genesis chapter 4 and verse 7. So now we see the corruption of the earth and the earth resisting Adam. Let's go back and we're going to go a little further. So we go back to Genesis chapter 1, going to the curse. Curse is the ground because of you. Adam is not cursed and Eve is not cursed. Don't let nobody tell you that. Curse is the ground because of you. In pain, you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you. And you shall eat the plants of the field, right? By the sweat of your face, you shall eat bread till you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, for you are dust, and to dust you shall return. This is all important because Noah is supposed to bring relief to that curse. How is Noah bringing relief to that curse? Well, let's go and take a look at that. It's a whole lesson I'm giving you. This is crazy. It's all good. It's all good. But let's go and see. Genesis chapter 9, right? And God blessed Noah and his sons. This is why Ham could not have been cursed by Noah, because he was already blessed by Yah. And said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear of you, watch this. The fear of you. Now that fear was not there prior because you need to get some animals on this ark. And again, people believe in a worldwide ark. That's your prerogative. I don't see it as a worldwide ark. They retrieved animals from the realm in which they live. The Aretz, the land in which the word earth is an anachronistic term. The land in which they dwelt, they retrieved the animals from the land in which they dwelt. So they didn't go get some panda from some other place of the world. Pandas didn't exist in that region at that time. They got all the animals clean and unclean. That means animals that we see within the book of Leviticus is what they had, clean and unclean animals. That's what they sourced from. Anyway, so they had those animals there, and those animals had to not have the fear or the dread. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to do the work that he did. So now Yah has put the fear on them now. Now that they are diverging, they're separating. It says the fear of you and the dread. Why is there fear and dread? Because of the curse of everything that was in the dominion of the hands of Adam. Now there's various stages where Yah is allowing things to occur. So now we get the ultimate dread and fear of the beast, because again, remember that betrayal? The beast instinctively has it hardwired in its physiological DNA to resist man and not allow man to have dominion over him. This is why today man's urge or instinct to keep animals within a controlled domain is a far cry to the dominion that Adam had, where he had to invoke animals to him and give them a title. It's a different thing when you can call something to you and name it and not have any fear of it attacking you or it have any fear of you. You see that? This is why the woman did not suspect anything with this Nakash that you call a serpent, but it's a serpentine entity that was there. There's probably more than just one of them there. One of them just decided to talk. It's another conversation. So that dread or that fear that has now fallen upon the animals is a resistance to the dominion that man has given up and over to an entity that does not have no respect for those things under its rule. So now the instincts kick back in, that now the fear and dread towards man is restored. It was paused for a moment, and now it's being restored. And it says, of the earth and upon every bird, everything that creeps, all the fish of the sea, into your hand they are delivered. So that means man still has some form of residue of dominion, but it's not full. That means you're going to get dominion with resistance. And we see that today. How many of those videos you see on YouTube where animals attack people? That be in zoos and the circus. They still attack people because this is still there. So even though it's been delivered to man and he tries to control it, the resistance, the fear, the dread is still there. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. You see that? This is the first time we're seeing a dietary prescription. Prior is what we saw in Genesis 1. Now we see a different one. And it says, and as I gave you the green plants, remember what he said to them in Genesis 1? I give you everything. Now that everything there is different. It's another conversation. But the key word thing is now they've been given animals as part of their diet. Yah did this. So now the original diet that man had in the Garden of Eden was one in which man was able to go, but man was kicked out of Eden, and there was an entity that was there with a flaming sword to keep man from returning back and getting his hands on the tree of life so he can live forever in his corruption. He was prevented from going back there. So what man became was a hunter-gatherer of nuts, we say seeds, and other opportunistic fruits and whatever else he can get his hands on, until we get to this situation here, where now the rest that Lamech said that Noah would give to man from toiling the earth, that he's doing it in pains, that rest is now Yah saying, now I'm going to give you an additional element. I'm going to add an additional element to your diet that you initially had. And that is these animals that will be delivered unto your hands that you can now get. And you can eat these things. But then he says in verse 4, but you shall not eat flesh with its life. That is the blood, which means these animals that I'm giving you for food must be drained of their blood. That's a whole nother conversation. That Dam, it's a whole nother conversation. And it says, and for your lifeblood, I will require a reckoning. From every beast, I will require it. And from man, from his fellow man, I will require a reckoning for the life of man. Verse 6, and verse 6 is a quote. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, for God made man in his own image. Very fascinating when I get into that lecture and we touch more on this image thing to see more depth and detail in regards to this lifeblood force and how that is reckoned in the ancient Near East and how blood is looked at. But that's neither here nor there. Then he says, and you shall be fruitful, multiply, and increase greatly on the earth and multiply in it. Why? Because it's the only way that you can have an element of dominion is if there's more of you now. Because now the one person couldn't do it and his consort can do it with him. But now in order for you to have these things delivered unto you, now that there's fear and dread, there got to be more of you now. Because otherwise you're not going to survive. People miss that survival element that's ingrained in it. But that's neither here nor there. All right. So to give an answer to the question in regards to the diet, Yah prescribed that now I give you. He says, I give you. You see that? Man didn't just say, oh, I'm going to start eating animals. No, Yah gave it to him. I give you. This is why when you see the Passover, and that's a required feast for those who are Israelites, you have to eat the lamb. If you're vegan, you got to eat the lamb. There's no exceptions for that. Where's that exception at prescribed in Torah? It's not there. There's no exceptions. You must eat the lamb. You must eat the lamb. Or you just don't partake in it at all. And if that's the case, then you're out of covenant. If you don't partake in it, and this is something that's supposed to be forever, according to Exodus 12, then you're just out of covenant. And that's fine. If you could choose to be out of covenant if you want, but you have to eat the lamb. Why? Because Yah says that I give it to you for food. He prescribed that. That's important. So when people start to say, oh, you need to be vegan because in Genesis 1, I said, whoa, yeah, I got you. But, that was an ideal situation in the garden of the gods that is known as in Phoenician culture and other Mesopotamian cultures. Anyway, That the garden of the gods, where the foods that man was eating were foods that were created, that the gods ate, that kept them immortal. That's another conversation, right? But yes, that's in the ideal state. But what happened to man? He was kicked out of that garden that had the food in it. He wasn't there no more. So now the food that he's getting now is nothing like what he got in that garden. There's no food or diet you can eat today that's going to make you immortal. Doesn't exist. There's no fountain of youth that exists. Everybody will die. That's it. There's no way around it. And the sooner you accept that, the easier it is to transition. But the bottom line that I'm saying is, in regards to the diet, when we see this here, Lamech said Noah will give us rest. How did he give us rest? By being obedient and persevering through the flood. And now he's saying, I'm going to give you something to add on to the plants. As I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything else for food as well. So that handles that. Let's go to 2 Samuel chapter 1, right? And let's tap out on that, okay? So hopefully that information was helpful, all right? So, no, I don't have that yet, Doro Yahoo, but I will. I can do one if you want. If you want me to talk about blood in the ancient Near East, and after you understand its ancient Near Eastern background, now how that element is being used within the text, I could do that. If that's some kind of lecture you want to see, I could definitely do that. Shout out to Apostle Zakan. Shout out to Game AMPME. Shout out to D Walk. Let me see, Saint Productions 1. So you said, please explain why you don't believe in a world earth-wide flood. Ice walls would have held the water in place, etc. Okay, I could touch on that another time. No problem. No problem. All right, so let me get back to my the thing I really wanted to touch on. And then from here, I'm going to close out. All right, because we're at the 2-hour mark now. So let me close out with that. All right, so let me go here. Let's go back to 2 Samuel chapter 1. All right, now I'm going to show you something very interesting. And this you need to pay attention to this, because this book of Jasher that's out now, if people think that what we see in 2 Samuel chapter 1 has to do with that, it has nothing to do with that at all. I'm going to say it again. The book of Jasher that is circulated in our community today, which our community didn't create, by the way, that's neither here nor there, has nothing to do with the book of Jasher mentioned in 2 Samuel chapter 1. And I'm going to show you. So you know what? I'm going to start at verse 1 until we get all the way down. I'm going to read all 27 verses, but I'm going to hone in on certain elements, and I'm going to show you that the book of Jasher has nothing to do with what we see the book of Jasher mentioned in 2 Samuel chapter 1. Y'all ready for this? If y'all ready, hit 1. I'm going to drop this last gem and I'm out. So if you want this gem, hit 1, or I could cut it off now so you can go back and supple on the other stuff that I just laid out previously, right? Hit 1 if you want me to finish. All right, cool. All right, watch this. All right, some of y'all, maybe a few of y'all know about this. Most of y'all don't. I'm gonna blow your mind. Let's go through it. Right, 2 Samuel chapter 1. I'm reading verse 1 for context, and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you something. Watch this. After the death of Saul, when David had returned from striking down the Amalekites, David remained 2 days in Ziklag. And on the third day, behold, a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dirt on his head. And when he came to David, he fell to the ground and paid homage. David said to him, "Where do you come from?" And he said to him, "I have escaped from the camp of Israel." And David said to him, "How did it go? Tell me." And he answered, "The people fled from the battle. Also, many of the people have fallen and are dead. And Saul and his son Jonathan are also dead." And David said to the young man who told him, "How do you know that Saul and his son Jonathan are dead?" And the young man who told him said, "By chance, I happened to be at Mount Gilboa, and there was Saul leaning on his spear, and behold, the chariots and the horsemen were close upon him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me, and he called to me. And I answered, 'Here I am.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' I answered him, 'I am an Amalekite.' And he said to me, 'Stand beside me and kill me, for anguish has seized me, and yet my life still lingers.' So I stood beside him and killed him, because I was sure that he could not live after he had fallen. And I took the crown that was on his head and the armlet that was on his arm, and have brought them here to you, my lord." And David took hold of his clothes and tore them, and so did all the men who were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until evening for Saul and for Jonathan his son and for the people of the Lord and for the house of Israel, because they had fallen by the sword. And David said to the young man who told him, where do you come from? And he answered, I am the son of a sojourner, an Amalekite. And David said to him, how is it you were not afraid to put out your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, go execute him. And he struck him down so that he died. And David said to him, your blood be on your head, for your own mouth has testified against you, saying, I have killed the Lord's anointed. Now, that's the background, okay? Now, here's the question for y'all. If y'all know about, those of you who know about the story, how was Saul wounded? How was Saul wounded? Put that in the chat before I move forward. How was Saul wounded? No, I do not believe that. Yeshua is not Yah. I do not believe that at all. And Hebrews 1:6, I did answer that before Israelite defense. Hit me on Clubhouse and I'll answer for you. I answered it in one of the Clubhouse sessions, but I'll address it for you on there. All right. Somebody told me, how was Saul injured? How was he injured? How was he wounded? If you don't know, just go back to the previous chapter. It's an open book test. Jason Williams, excellent question. I'm going to give you a free game. I'm going to drop a book in the chat for you on that, okay? While y'all hopefully answer the question so I can give you this nugget, let me put that in here. I'm going to drop a book in there for you, okay? There we go. And if you like books like this, sign up for the Patreon, man. Patreon is designed for bibliophiles as well. There's tons of books on everything in there. You know what I'm saying? So let me put it in here. All right. Ink pen and Solomon said arrows. Okay, thank you. How do we know that? I said it was an open book test, right? I said all you got to do is go back to the previous chapters. Go back to the previous chapter. The death of Saul, right? Now look at this. The battle, verse 3, 1 Samuel chapter 31, verse 3. The battle pressed hard against Saul, and the archers found him. Archers found him, and he was badly wounded. What? By the archers. Arrows, right? Now watch this. Let's go to verse 17, okay? And David lamented with his lamentation over Saul and Jonathan his son, and he said, it should be taught to the people of Judah. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher. He said, now there's a lot here. Let's go to verse 18, right? Let's go to verse 18. Always going to interlinear. For those who don't know the language, just walk through it. Weyomer le lamed bene Yehuda, right? To teach the sons of Judah. Look at this. You see this? Look at this bracket. You have the word corset. Corset. So corset is the bow, because that is how you shoot arrows. That's what archers use. They use a bow and an arrow. So he said, teach them. You know that word lamed, that consonant lamed means to teach. It's a shepherd's staff. To teach, to God. Teach the sons of Judah the bow, or the son of the bow. Now, teach them the song of the bow. Yes. Why? Because ketuvah, it is written out the Sefer, the book of Yashar, in the book of Jasher. Yashar, in the book of Jasher. Wait, so the song of the bow, teach them the song of the bow that is written, or that is in the book of the scroll of Jasher. Well, what is that? Well, he begins to tell you what it is. This is what is written. Your glory, O Israel, is slain on your high places. How the mighty have fallen. Tell it not in Gath. Publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon. Lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice. Lest the daughters of the uncircumcised exalt. Your mountains of Gilboa. Let there be no dew or rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty was defiled. The shield of Saul was not anointed with oil. For the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Saul returned not empty. Saul and Jonathan, beloved and lovely, in life and in death, they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. You daughters of Israel, weep over Saul, who clothed you luxuriously in scarlet, who put ornaments of gold on your apparel. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of battle. Jonathan lies slain on your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. How the mighty have fallen and the weapons of war perished. The song of the bow is written in the book of the scroll of Jasher, and then he goes on to say it. Why? We know when we look up, watch this, when we look up, it says, and David lamented with this lamentation. So the lamentation that he lamented with, he said, teach this to the people of Judah, that they should know the way of the bow, as it is written in the book of Jasher. So when we see this word here, right, this word here, Jasher, let's go in, Jasher, right? Let's get a little information. It means straight, right, upright, from the root verb here, as it's an adjective, which means to be smooth, straight, or right. Well, what do you mean, the book of uprightness? Well, obviously, whatever this book of uprightness is, it has these elements in it, various other texts in it. This is why when you read the book of Jasher today, they try to imitate that by putting different other stories and narratives in. That's neither here nor there. But one of those things that's written in the book of Jasher that Jasher should have is what we just read, the lamentation that David just gave. This has nothing to do with the book of Jasher you have today, because the book of Jasher does not contain this lamentation. And it's not talking about the song of the bow and the book of the upright and the scroll of the upright. Write it, or put a writing of it in the scroll of the upright. It's a scroll, it has a writing of it, which is the lamentation that he gave on Saul and Jonathan, because Saul died from archers who shot arrows in him. This is why it's the song of the bow, because that was the element that killed Saul. And it's a reminder. I'm done. All right, I'm gonna stop right there. I'm finished. I'm gonna slow it down. I'm done. All praise to the Most High, Yah. Let's close out this session. Thank you so much, family, for your time. Yes, I'm probably going to jump on it after this. Pause on Clubhouse. That's what I meant. After I wrap up with this, to kind of see what's going on there. But if anything, I'll probably go back on tomorrow. But neither here nor there, family. Hopefully, what we discussed today was extremely helpful. If you do appreciate the stuff that we shared on tonight, you can support us by signing up for the Patreon. Why? Because you get an immediate return on your investment. Whatever you put in, from $1 to $1 million, whatever you put in on the Patreon, we have tiers of different elements in it. Get access to this atlas at the $50 tier, the 2 survey lectures at the $20 tier. The video of this $50 tier, you get the video of this, but this book and the survey books you get at the $10 tier, right? All resources that you need to go back and fact check everything that's been said. Go back and do your own inquiries to answer your own questions, because the best way that people remember what they taught is through self-discovery and application that yields results. Not always because somebody said it, because somebody gave their testimony of it, but when they're able to replicate what's been given to them and they can use it to feed and nourish their soul, then they'll continue to remember it, ponder on it, contemplate on it, and they'll continue to follow it out. So the information we gave, family, I take time diligently to read, to study, to pray, and to go outside of our community to other communities where gatekeepers have certain parts of information to bring it back to us as a spook that sat by the door. So we have all this data to work with, because Yah has so many means that he wants to talk to us. We just need those who are astute enough in our community to deliver it to us on a silver platter, to serve it to us as butlers of this information, as new caretakers of this information, not gatekeepers, but caretakers of this information. We all have a liability and a responsibility to do such that. So I pray the information was edifying, was encouraging, was equipping, was educating, so that now you can pay it forward and give it to somebody else to educate them on this journey, because we are all here for one another. Much love to your family. I appreciate that. Again, I apologize again for my absence. I'm going to strive to continue to be more consistent with all the things that I mentioned earlier that I want to put out, and even showing up on Friday and Saturday nights for you guys. But in the interim, if you don't see anything from me, pay attention to my social media, the community tab on YouTube and Patreon, because there's always content being furnished on there. I would say weekly, if not monthly. All right. Love you, family. I appreciate y'all. See you on the next live stream. Bring your questions next Freestyle Friday or Saturday Night Live. Let's address it. Please share this video everywhere. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're brand new. Go back, check out the archives because we got tons more powerful stuff than what you heard on tonight. All right. Love you, family. It was great spending time with y'all. I missed a lot of y'all. Hopefully, I call out everybody. Shout out to E. Johnson, Nonstop Edit, Shalom. Let me see who else in there that I may have went over that didn't look. If you want a final shout out, hit 1 before we close out. Shout out to Dwayne Fletcher, Shalom. Let me see, my brother Israelite Defense, Shalom. Let me see, anybody else? Eternal KO 11, Shalom. And I think that's everybody else. So Judas Redemption, Shalom. I see you right there. Sign of the Times, TV HQ, Shalom. JD Israel, Shalom. And I think that's everybody. Okay, that's everybody. Okay. All right. So, family, listen, whenever we go live, you know, we always bring out some information. And I'm just grateful that Yah has kept me in a humble place to be able to be a vessel to deliver it to you guys. I want to continue to pray for y'all. If you need anything from us as a ministry, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. If you want to patronize the ministry, all that information in the description below. And I continue to pray that Yah will continue to watch over y'all, give you the enlightenment that you need to continue to walk this path so you can prepare yourself, your household, and your community for his arrival that's coming soon. The kingdom will come, but it's not your duty to worry about what day and what time. It's your duty to be so busy that when it comes, you're already prepared to receive it. Let's be in that state humbly, and let's continue to lift each other's up. Put hands down to pick each other up, not hand forward to push each other away. We need each other now more than ever, seeing everything that's going on in current events and everything that we need as Israel, as a nation of people, that we need to pull these resources to create our Goshens so we can continue to have these autonomous communities with our culture embedded in it to keep us intact and cohesive as a community so we can withstand Jacob's trouble that is upon us, and we can also persevere so that in the end, when our salvation draws nigh, we can welcome it with open arms. And this is my desire for each and every one of you that are watching this. And I pray that Yah will continue to keep you on that journey to get you to where you need to go. All right. Much love, peace, and shalom, family. See you in the next live stream. All right.